Welcome to today's episode of True to Form with your host, President and co-founder of Crystal Clear, highly regarded speaker, and two-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Tim Sawyer. True to Form is a podcast that highlights leaders making headway in the aesthetic, anti-aging, and elective medical industry. Learn from the experts to discover the secrets of success and pitfalls to avoid when growing all aspects of your elective medical practice. This week's episode is brought to you by Candela, a leading US-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications, including hair removal, wrinkle reduction, tattoo removal, women's health treatments, facial resurfacing, traumatic and surgical scar treatments, body contouring, improving the skin's appearance through the treatment of benign vascular and pigmented lesions, and the treatment of acne, leg veins, and cellulite. Please join me in welcoming your host, the authentic, the transparent, Tim Sawyer.
Hello, welcome to True to Form, a podcast that connects you to the people, technology, and hot topics that shape the elective community. Provided to you by Crystal Clear and brought to you by this week's sponsor, Candela, the leading US-based medical aesthetic device company. I'm your host, Tim Sawyer. To our returning guests, welcome back. And for our first-time listeners, we appreciate you joining us and encourage you to become a subscriber. In the last episode, we spoke with internationally renowned plastic surgeon, Dr. Stanley Okoro, who talked about the importance of producing more content than you consume and how he was able to increase surgery conversion post-shutdown through the utilization of telemedicine and some structural changes. I don't want to give too much away. Maybe we'll get into it with our guest today, who is a longtime friend. And I'm grateful that we've been able to, and honored that we've been able to get her on the program today. You guys are going to love her. Sarah Bengelsdorf is the practice manager of Franklin Skin and Laser, just outside Nashville, Tennessee. She is also the mother of 3 teenagers and juggles it all like a queen. After graduating from Brown University, she obtained a master's in social work from Simmons College. She began her career as a psychotherapist and eventually became the director of a mental health clinic. In 2005, Sarah and her husband, Dr. Stephen Bengelsdorf, built and designed a practice from the ground up. She was part of every aspect of creating a world-class experience for her patients. They started with 1 laser, 1 microdermabrasion machine, and 1 employee. Today, Franklin Skincare has 2 locations, over 15 energy-based devices, and 12 employees. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tim.
We can't wait. So the first question that I have to ask, because now that I've reread your bio, I have so many questions.
Okay.
One, as I noticed, it says psychotherapist, and I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about the dynamic of working with family, but clearly you've got a lot of training in that. So
I use my psychotherapy skills every day, Tim.
That's an
both with my husband and my employees, and of course with the patients as well.
I bet. Now, Brown in Providence?
That's it. Yep. Isn't that where you're from? In Rhode Island?
Yeah. I didn't realize. That's great.
Yeah.
So where was the inspiration that in 2005 you said, you know what, I've been doing this, but I really think I can do that? Like what was there some event that happened? How'd you get to that place?
Well, it was probably from deciding to have 3 children in 3.5 years and wanting to have a business that was flexible. My husband was a surgeon. He still is a surgeon, but he was on call all the time at hospitals. We couldn't make our own schedule. He wasn't around much. So we really wanted, to create something that we could have flexibility, that was exclusively ours, that we could spend more time with our kids, and, we could make people feel good about themselves.
That's amazing. That's a lot to juggle. I give you a lot of credit. Did you envision, thinking back in 2005, you've got 1 laser, 1 machine, and 1 employee. Did you envision in your mind that, 15 years later, you'd be in the position that you're in?
Not in my wildest dreams. I mean, it was very scary. It was a leap of faith. There were days when there was maybe 3 people on our books. Nobody knew about us. We didn't have any partners. We did it all by ourselves. You know, we were advertising in the Yellow Pages back then, which makes you realize how long ago that was. But that actually kind of worked back then. Doesn't work today. But you know, people just came trickling in. But no, I would have never thought that we would be where we are today. I'm super grateful for everything that we've received.
Let me ask you this, Sarah. Obviously, to get to the place where you're at from the place you were at, there was something. What if you said, "Hey, there's a couple things, Tim, that we did early on that attributed to the place that we're at now"? What would you say those are?
Well, I'm kind of a control freak, I would say, and very obsessive compulsive. So I would say that I never left the business alone. I always knew what was happening. I always knew what was happening with my staff. I used to sit at the desk all the time and greet every patient. I knew every patient's name. It was kind of a mom and pop shop, and the patients really responded well to that. But I was involved in every aspect. I never left the place alone.
And are you still, is that consistent today? I assume you probably got your hands in everything, right?
I know I still do have my hands in everything, but I cannot do everything now. I'll tell you, I used to, on the weekends, forward our office phones to my personal cell phone. This was probably like 12 years ago. And I used to make appointments in the Walmart parking lots and also at Disney World at times. And, I can tell you how much those phone calls were worth just because I picked up the phone. I never let the phone be unanswered.
And which is interesting because I know you've got high IQ when it comes to the sales and marketing efforts in the practice. And based on what I'm hearing is that's because you were dialed in, really, you were the one taking those phone calls. And so,
I was.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about some of the processes that you put in place from those experiences so that you keep, because as you grow, obviously it's tough to be consistent, and what you're working on now in terms of the sales and marketing side of the house.
Well, obviously I can't answer every phone call today, but I do train my staff extensively on phone training. I don't even allow new employees to answer the phone until probably about a good 6 weeks, until they really are able to speak about our procedures, know about how our office works, and feel really comfortable. They have to know what they're talking about on the phone, because that is really the first point where people decide to book. So it's the most important position by far.
And it is my sense that sometimes people underestimate the importance of that. It's the biggest thing to me. And do you also spend much time listening to phone calls? I know you capture and record them, but do you get a chance to listen to some of the phone calls with the practice, and what's that been like?
Yeah, I do. I listen to phone call recordings thanks to Crystal Clear. I go on and I listen to them, and I use it as a training experience. I talk to my staff and I say, hey, I don't think that we booked that patient because, you sounded a little unsure on this. And then I use it as a way to educate our staff. So it's been invaluable, the phone call recordings.
And how does staff, because I know there's people listening to this saying, what? You talk to your staff about what they said on the phone? How does staff, this age, you have to treat everybody like a baby. How does the staff react to that? And culturally, how have you been able to implement that?
Well, we do have monthly all staff meetings. I meet with my administrative staff weekly, but what I'll do is I'll play some phone calls from each different staff person, and say this was a great phone call, and do shout outs to people. And so everybody knows that they may be heard in front of everybody on the recording. So it just becomes common culture. They know that we listen to phone calls. They know how much we value them. So they kind of get used to it. They don't love it, but they get used to it.
Well, who would? I wouldn't.
No, I don't like listening to myself either.
I had a funny experience with, we do the same thing. This was in a previous iteration of this business. We were capturing and recording all our calls. And like you, it was early on. And I took one of the calls and it was recorded. I botched the whole thing. And one of my sales guys got the call. And his move was he kept that call in his phone for probably 5 years. And anytime he wanted to ask me, he's like, don't listen to his bullshit. And then he would literally play the phone call for them. And I'm like, yeah, just botching everything.
I love that. I have to remember that.
You have to be able to laugh at yourself. And
absolutely. I've played phone calls that I've botched for my staff too. You have to be humble.
Yeah, and they respect that though, right?
They do. They do.
I think what kills what you've been able to accomplish many times in a practice is the gotcha. Like they can't feel like I gotcha, right?
Yeah.
It's about education and then doing that better, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And of course, our listeners are getting great insight all over the country. And one of the things that we've been talking about over the past, can you believe, going on 6 months, is the impact of COVID. And it's different, obviously, in every part of the country. You're just outside of Nashville. Where are you? Where is Nashville at? Where are you at with COVID? And what's the schedule been like? Sorry. Go ahead.
So we were down for about 7 weeks. We weren't really allowed to see anyone that wasn't essential. When we came back on May 1st, we came in like gangbusters. People were chomping at the bit to get in. We had the busiest May and June, we've had in years, just because, people were waiting a couple months for their Botox or for other treatments. They would call me every day, say, when are you opening? I had this one woman who would call me to make sure that she really had her appointment on May 1st. She called me every day. So I did answer the phone while we were closed every day.
That's good. And so so you're fully open and fully functioning now?
We are, yep, since May 1st.
And what's been the reaction of the typical patient? How are you communicating to them that they're going to be safe? Have you made changes in protocols? And what are you getting a lot of that from the consumer saying, hey, am I going to be okay?
So we sent out a couple of preliminary emails saying what we have in place, but honestly, we already had these mechanisms in place. When your office is run by a surgeon, everything is sterile and clean, and we have air filters. And so a lot of our patients said, I feel great about coming back to you guys, or they say things like, you're the only place I'm going.
Right.
So they know how careful we are.
And that's great. And obviously you've had to, I'm sure, communicate that through the site and through social and
yeah, I've added it to my site. We sent out a bunch of emails prior to opening, reassuring patients, but also saying that, we didn't want our elderly patients to come back too soon.
Got it. Now, are you doing temperature testing or anything like that?
Absolutely. Temperature testing. We only allow 2 people in our reception area at one time. They call before they come in, and we let them know when it's okay to come in. We've made some small changes. We do have 2 offices, so we kind of spread people out a little bit more between the 2 offices.
Yeah. And how, in terms of sustainability, you had those couple months that were just gangbusters. I'm sure, like you said, there was some pent up demand. Has it remained relatively consistent as you head into June, July, August kind of thing?
Yeah, it has. I mean, especially in this industry where the summer months are typically a little bit slower. People are always traveling. People didn't go too many places this summer, so we had that advantage, which definitely made up for the 2 months that we were down.
And it's interesting because I have been talking with clients and friends and peers, and there was a couple concepts that have been shared in terms of this burst in activity, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. One of them is that folks haven't been able to go anywhere really and spend their money, right? They've got disposable income and they have no place to spend it. And I apologize. And they've got no place to spend it. And then the
Right.
other, I'd be curious to get your take on it, is the idea of the Zoom boom. So people are staring at their faces all day.
Yeah.
And what are your take? Do you feel that too?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of time at home in the mirror, and there's a lot of time, a lot of FaceTime calls and a lot of Zoom calls. I think people are really showing their face. And another advantage is with the mask, you can get a lot of lower face work done without anyone knowing at this time too.
Yeah, exactly. And what's the procedure mix like? Is there any one thing that people are coming back to for more at this point in time, or?
Gosh, I mean, there's so many different procedures that I think everybody wanted their Botox when they came back.
Just raging.
And then the body sculpting as well. They weren't able to do that in the spring to prepare for summer, so people are getting that in now.
Right. And are gyms open?
Yes, gyms are open here. I mean, I think there's some social distancing guidelines, but I don't personally go to the gym. Probably should, but they are open.
They are open. Because my other theory was that, people have been in the house, haven't been moving around much, and probably putting on a little weight, and then, wanting to go in and get there, can't go to the gym or whatever. You've got to go in and get your body contouring somewhere. And so I have a question for you too, and I'd be really curious to hear this. I know you and Dr. Bengelsdorf go to some shows. You're not what I call my crazy friends who go to every show, but you do go to some shows. What's your take on that without any shows? Are you guys missing that? And when do you think that's going to come back?
Yeah, I don't know when that's going to come back. I think one of the advantages of this pandemic, one of the few, is that there have been so many virtual webinars for our staff to continue their education, and it's free.
Right.
It's pretty much free, and you don't have to travel. And so we have been able to educate our staff a lot more and give them some great learning opportunities. So that's kind of been nice about that. I love going to shows. I love meeting people. That's how I met you, Tim. I'll miss that. You don't get that from a virtual seminar, but the other education aspects of the seminars have been nice virtually.
Now, if shows opened up tomorrow at the same rate that they were pre-COVID, would you still go to the same venues?
I like to go to a couple different shows a year. I like going to the Vegas Cosmetic Show. I saw you last at the Miami Cosmetic Show. They have some great meetings for practice managers and other managerial discussions. So I tend to go to those the most.
And COVID would have no impact on you in terms of going?
Well, I might want the numbers to be a little lower before I venture out.
I think
I haven't flown yet.
Neither. You know what's funny? I haven't been in a plane in 6 months. And I was
you travel all the time.
Yeah, 40 weekends. I did 40 up and down trips last year. And then
Wow.
Yeah, none this year. So that's been interesting. And I know that in the aesthetic community, it's like a traveling caravan of friends, right? It's a great outlet for you, and it's a great outlet for your husband to go and see people. And I was talking to, I mentioned Stanley Accord today, who said, the social aspect of it has been tough. And I think it's been tough on people in a lot of ways. But I'm encouraged at the rate at which the demand has come back. And obviously, so people are getting over their fear of whatever it is, COVID or anything else, and going out and getting treatments. And I think that's great. Now, I want to take a quick shift. Our sponsor is Candela. You're a huge Candela user, their devices. What would
We
you
are.
say?
We love Candela.
You love Candela. Let's give them a shout out. So, what would you say your number one Candela device is that gets the most activity in the practice?
It's by far the G Max Pro.
What's it called?
The G Max Pro.
The G Max Pro.
It
And
does,
what is
it does just about everything. Well, not everything, but laser hair, laser vein, sunspot treatments, things like that.
Yeah,
It's a power horse.
It's a power horse. That's your big one.
Yeah.
They've been great. And shout out to them. They know that we love them, and they've got a great reputation in the industry, great support. And the other question that I had was, I've been asking everyone that we interview and this isn't about Candela per se, it's about the support community. So in other words, whether it's a laser company, a skincare company, if you could say, and you're an analytical person, if you could say to that community, this is how I think you could improve the way you serve the practice, are there any recommendations that you would like me to pass on, or say, hey guys, if we could do more of this or less of this, you'd appreciate it? It's kind of like a little survey I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah, the vendors that I have the closest relationships to come see me a lot. Now, of course, they can't see me so much these days, but they call me, they check in on me, we email, we text. I think having that personal interaction is really important, and not just being sent, standard emails and try a new product. I mean, I think when the reps come and spend time at the offices, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and not everyone's like that. And I think one of the things about, not to make this a Candela commercial, but they seem to be pretty good about that. And
I have an excellent reputation with my Candela representative, and he's been with us for, probably 12 years.
Wow. So they're doing the right things. And I'm sure it's funny because when I talk to practice managers, it's always the best ones. They do put a lot of weight, if you will, in vendor management. In other words, it's more than just buying stuff, but it's maintaining relationships. And I think, that's a big part of success over time, is having friends that you can lean on when you need help, right?
Absolutely. And, some of my best reps, and we're a big account for them now, they believed in us when we first started out, and some companies did not. And they stayed with us, and they encouraged us, and they helped us grow. And I really thank them for that. But they definitely were with us from the beginning and wanted to be.
That's great. And as we start to wind down, when you think about, go back, because I love your story. You go back to 2005, and you look at the body of, from 2005 to 2020. What were some of the challenges as you look back that you confronted, and maybe something that you would do differently, or a little bit of, a nugget of wisdom that we can impart to the listeners?
I would say that by far the biggest challenge is finding good staff.
Yeah.
And staffing is difficult, and your business is nothing without your staff. And some of my mistakes were keeping some staff members on too long. I mean, I guess it's kind of the therapist in me. I want to mentor them and, help them grow, but we just kept them too long. And, sometimes one bad apple just spoils the bunch. But, no matter how well trained somebody is or how many patients are on their books, sometimes you really just have to let people go because they're just not good for the clinic. We've been very fortunate to have staff members that have been with us for 12 years and 10 years, 7 years. And, you have to treat them well. Your staff are everything. You have to pay them well. We do wine and cheese nights on Thursdays for our staff. We used to, pre-pandemic, take them out for happy hour. You got to treat them like family.
It's funny because as you were talking, I said, it sounds like you're creating a familial environment where, people feel comfortable, and and a lot of times they can thrive in that. But to your point, you've got to know when to say when.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, if you do let someone go, your staff members will really step up. And they'll realize that no one is irreplaceable, but then you'll also see that people would feel that things were difficult and they become a lot happier and the workplace becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, you're clearly not just talking the talk, but you're walking the walk. And I give you a lot of credit. I've always been impressed with any time that we bumped into each other. It shows you're a tough cookie. And you ask the right questions and you make appropriate demands. And that's cool, right? Because you're also, I get it, you're managing us. We're a vendor too. And but it's never, in a threatening or contemptuous way. It's, hey, listen, you got to help me. And I get that. And I absolutely respect that. And that's why I was grateful that you would come on and share some wisdom with our folks. And obviously we wish nothing but your continued success. You're in that small. When you start with where you were, right? It's just you, your husband, a machine, and you get a business to where it is now, where you've got 12 employees in 2 locations and the thing's cooking. That takes a lot of work. It really does. And I respect that enormously. And
yeah,
so,
I mean, it's definitely my 4th child. The business is my 4th child. It's a lot of work. I'm constantly working, but it's worth it. Well worth it.
I couldn't imagine what you would do without it. You'd be thinking you probably have started your own business by now. It'd be even bigger if you didn't have front run it. But technically, that is you're running it. That's what you told me. You're the head chief.
I've been called other things, but thank you.
Hey, I always say, and we'll wind down with this, there's that people with your type of personality and the level of success you're at, there's usually a wake behind them. There's the ones on the right, nothing but great things to say. The ones on the left, And I'm the same.
I've heard vendors say it's hard to get an appointment at our office. It's hard to get through me.
You're a tough cook, but good for you. And please, please, please say hello to Dr. Bengelsdorf. Let him know that we're thinking about him.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you taking the time today. Sarah Bengelsdorf,
You're welcome.
thank you so much. And guys, want to thank everyone for listening today. Also want to give a shout out to Candela. We love them. If you're interested in learning more about Crystal Clear, you can pop by the website. Go to crystalcleardm.com, crystalcleardm.com. Click on the sales icon or call the 800 number. The guys will be more than happy to help you. And Sarah, before we let you go, if people wanted to take a peek at your site and your online presence, what's the website again?
franklinlaser.com.
franklinlaser.com. Guys, they've got a great online presence. We encourage you to check it out. Thank you, Sarah, and we look forward to hearing you again soon. Guys, we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of True to Form, brought to you by Candela, a leading U.S.-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications. To learn more about this week's podcast sponsor, visit candelamedical.com. And to learn more about your podcast provider, Crystal Clear, visit crystalcleardm.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all your favorite music apps, including iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and tune in to stay up to date with the newest episodes. Thank you for listening.